often happens is there is frustration if they're doing work that's, let's say, quotes below what their skill set is. And that leads to frustration that they're not progressing professionally. But that lack of professional progression equals lack of progression in salary as well. And so what firms are able to do is use that skill at the level that they are trained for. And because the firm's earning more, and we have the stats that show that—
I love data and stats, Vipul. So if you got any data or stats, go ahead and throw those out there.
Yeah. So, when we've got a firm with 250 staff, and what they have measured is that each of those 250 staff, on average, bill an extra $15,000 to $20,000 per annum because they use.
Welcome to AFO Wealth Management Forward, a podcast about finance, accounting, technology, and entrepreneurship. We apply our decades worth of experience and insight into what makes businesses work, so we can help others grow both personally and professionally. In this ever-evolving marketplace, we help accounting firms and financial advisors grow their practice through the adoption of holistic wealth management services. Learn from industry leaders and subject matter experts to unlock the secrets of their success. A podcast that shows people and companies the transformative power of technology so they don't fear it, but instead harness it. Don't fight the robots, team up with them. And here are your hosts, Rory Henry, Director of Business Development, and CEO Rob Santos of Arrowroot Family Office.
Hello, everyone. I am again joined by Will Hill of Will Hill Consults. Will, how are you doing today?
Hey, I am doing fantastic. I love recording things on a Friday. I feel like it puts me in a good mood to record on a Friday.
It's the best. Do you have any big plans for the weekend?
So my middle child is going off to camp for the weekend.
Ooh.
So it's her first camp experience. And I've heard a rumor that the other two kids are looking forward to her being gone for a little while, but I don't know what that means. And we're just going to say everyone's going to make the most of it.
I love it. I love it. All right. Well, I'm excited about our guest today. He is the founder of Advancetrack Outsourcing, which is a leading service provider to the global accounting profession. Vipul Sheth. Vipul, welcome to the show.
Hi, good day. How are you all?
We are great. Thank you for joining us. As we always do, Vipul, can you give our audience a background, on how you came to start Advancetrack, and what you guys do over there?
Sure. So, hi, everyone. I'm Vipul. In terms of why I ended up building Advancetrack, I kind of have to go back a little bit.
Yeah.
And that is just like why I became an accountant. And this, the reality is I wanted to go into business as a teenager. And I think my mother despaired that what's this guy going to do? And my dad said, you got something between your ears, go and get an education. And one summer, she volunteered me to work for free at her accountant's office. So, CPA, if you think, and I had an amazing summer, and I saw what a really commercial advisor can actually do. And it was very different to my perception that what they do is produce some financial information, which they then get the business owner to sign. And I saw that actually what he did was he genuinely made a difference. And I am a product of that, the success of my family and, how they succeeded in business. I wouldn't have had the same opportunities of education and to go on to become a professional. I then had some great times, worked for EY and KPMG amongst others, and then said, right, I'm 30 something, I better go and do something different. And I said, right, there's all these CPAs, accountants around the world. They want to be changing the lives of business owners. They just don't have the time. And why don't I harness the immense talent of the accountants in India to support the global accounting profession? So 19 odd years ago, I started this journey. We are, now opening our 5th location in India, employing hundreds of accountants, serving accounting firms across the globe.
Yeah, Will, did you see he went to summer camp with an accounting professional? I think you may need to send
so
your son.
Two things came in my mind there. First of all, to the audience listening, no, free labor does not exist anymore. It's not going to happen. Get it out of your mind. All right. That's the first thing that all the audience went to is where can I find some free teenagers to come in and crank out some work? Talk a little bit, Vipul, about kind of the global nature of the accounting language.
Yeah. I guess as an accounting professional, it's relatively easy for me to see, and I know not everyone listening is necessarily an accounting professional, but I think the key in all of this is debits and credits are the same the world over, and as long as you know how to account for whatever it is, whether it's buying a car or paying for a coffee, as long as the person doing that task understands that, then they're able to actually support an accounting firm, whether it's in North America or the UK or elsewhere. I think the key is the language. That's an important part of it, that English is the primary language that our people work in, but beyond that, I think it really comes down to technical ability, and the one thing is that they have that. And the great thing I see in the young men and women that work for me there is their attitude and their willingness to learn. They're real sponges, and I think that's really what makes the difference in them wanting to be better and serving the customers better.
Yeah, and I got a question of Vipul. You've been doing this for about 20 years, so you've seen the growth of cloud technology. I'm interested on hearing from a historical perspective, the growth and adoption of outsourcing. Has there been inflection points in the adoption? I'm sure it's accelerated through COVID. Can you kind of talk about the history over the last 2 decades and how firms are starting to adopt this more and more?
Yeah, it's a really good point, actually. And we as a business have actually been in the cloud for over 16 years. So we are one of the early sort of movers in that space. But it's a really good point, because what cloud has really enabled to happen is to have that real-time information, and the work can be done in real time. And I think what's happened is outsourcing in my early days, shall we say, was very much about a history lesson. So you were reporting what had happened in time gone by, whereas what is possible today, because the information is there, it's live, there's bank feeds, there are invoice feeds, all of it is happening in real time. We as a profession, and I'm talking generally and not just as an outsourcing business, as a profession, what we're able to do is drill in, process data, and actually take that information and turn it into something that is useful. Whereas a history lesson, most entrepreneurs actually know, I know I made money last year. And I think it's within this range. And I think what's now possible with cloud is that right now, I know you're overspending on this, or, this area, your margin last month was X, let's try and understand why that is, and obviously in the world that we're in today, the price of things are going up a lot more than normal. So you can imagine that having that access to that level of information, people are able to make decisions faster and change prices faster. And, I certainly remember probably 15, 20 years ago when I used to go into an SME and I'd say, oh, you didn't make as much money last year. He said, oh, yeah, all my steel prices went up, but I didn't change my prices. or I quoted it 3 months ago and didn't have provision to actually up the price if the raw materials had gone up. So I think those are the sorts of conversations that now business owners can have with their advisors in real time, and that's the beauty of cloud.
So Vipul, one of the things I work with accounting firm owners quite a bit is on managing through change and executing in the midst of things shifting and moving. And I talk a lot about how the mentality has to be right at the start. So for someone who is looking at getting into outsourcing some of their accounting work or has just started, from your perspective, what are the top 2 or 3 mental changes they've got to make to really leverage this opportunity that someone like Advancetrack provides?
I think it's a great question, and it's all about change management, absolutely. And if you were changing a piece of software, you'd give people training and make them understand why you're doing it. And it's the same with outsourcing. The employees, because usually what happens is the boss makes a decision. They'll talk to me or somebody in my team and say, "Oh, yeah, this is a brilliant idea. Yeah, let's go and do it." And then they task their staff with making it happen. But those staff have not been involved in any of the decision making. They haven't understood the reasons why the firm owners are making those decisions. And so first and foremost, the conversation I always have with firms is, you need to explain the reasons why you're doing this. Is it to save costs? 99% of the time, it is not the sole reason. It helps the decision, but it's not the real reason. The real reason usually is their staff are really busy and don't have time to serve the clients, the advisory piece, the telephone calls, the Zoom calls, or whatever it is, or the client visits. Then don't have the time to do that. And so often what I say is, if their jobs are not at risk, you need to tell them their jobs are not at risk, because otherwise it drives the wrong behavior amongst the staff, because they're in protection mode. And, we all have, how can I put it? Things that perhaps we're afraid of. I'm trying to think of the right words, but that is something that they're genuinely afraid that their job is going to be sent offshore. And actually, if the firm is open and honest with the team members, they will understand that it's to make their life better and ultimately to make their clients' lives better. Because if their clients get better service, guess what? They will love you even more as an advisor, because you've made them more successful. And as I said to you at the opening of this, I am a product of a commercial advisor making a business more successful, and that's what it's really about. And that's always the driver. It should be a strategic decision, not a short-term tactical decision, which fills the hole. For anybody that knows the story about that little boy who stopped the water coming in through the dike in Holland, I'm sure you've all heard it. He can only stand there for so long. That's not the long-term answer. It's not the long-term solution to, we're all really busy. What you have to do is you need to use maybe outsourcing, maybe technology, but it's always usually a combination of all of those things to find the long-term answer to whatever problem you're trying to solve.
Yeah, and I'm interested in what other objections you're getting or hesitation from firm owners as far as adopting outsourcing. I just saw, recently Veeam, the global payments technology, had a cybersecurity issue, and they're releasing dates of birth as well as the last 4 digits of bank accounts. I'm assuming cybersecurity is another hesitation on the part of firm owners. Can you kind of talk about those objections?
Of course. I mean, cybersecurity is, if you ask either me or my CTO, what are the things that worry us? It is absolutely cybersecurity. So it's the area where we probably invest more than anything else within our organization for that very reason. And having worked in Big 4 firms, what you understand there is absolutely everything. When you get handed a piece of equipment, it's gone through this process where they've assessed, right, what are the risks that we as a business have? And we do exactly that. We do exactly the same. And you can imagine when COVID hit, suddenly we've got to move all our people, hundreds of people, from a secure office location where we have all the controls in place to a home location. And how do we make sure that the work that they do is as secure in that external environment as to when it's in an environment that we can control? So hence the reason we go through a whole host of certifications, international certifications, and ongoing audits to make sure that what we're doing the best that we can to protect our data, but more importantly, the end user's data, because we've got a huge amount of confidential information, and we do have to, and we take that super, super seriously. So I don't know. Does that?
No, that was great. No, that was great.
That
was great.
And I'm curious. Besides the technical piece there, what are the other hesitations that your sales group has to kind of overcome and work through with firms?
I think a part of it is language. Part of it is technical capability. That how what experience do they have? Is it extensive? Can they use a particular piece of software? So it can get quite detailed, but broadly, I would put it in those three core categories. Language, what I say is an accountant is an accountant, and they can explain to another accountant what they're trying to do. We rarely, if ever, deal with the business owner, and therefore we're not trying to explain some odd term which a business owner won't understand. An accountant can explain to a fellow accountant what they were trying to do in producing a particular file. So that bit is fine. So language, and English is the primary business language in India and many parts of the world. So that's certainly not an issue there. The other one, software. What I always say is they are young men and women. And so when you give them anything, they just instinctively know, right, let me try this, let me try that. And they get there really quick. I say I would be scared at coming out now as a 21, 22-year-old graduate. I'd be scared of trying to compete in terms of speed with these young men and women because they are super, super smart and really get it. So I think that is the key. And, you've got, you talked about having young children yourself. Yeah, you give them a computer or an iPad or something. Yeah, they can do stuff that you can only, I can only speak for myself. Yeah, I give mine to my daughter, and within minutes she's putting videos together, she's doing this, doing that, and I say, but 5 minutes ago you said you didn't know what you were doing. But but I tried this and it did it. And it's like, oh, okay, great. And that's really what these young men and women do. They experiment, they work it out, they're smart, and that's the reason that they're able to do it.
Unfortunately, that ties back to the cybersecurity issue because my kids recently just hacked my iPad password. They must have seen me type it in or something. I must have had bad procedures on my input side. So I had to go change that passcode thanks to the children breaking that down. What's your model? I've heard of different outsource models in terms of a pool of individuals available to a firm versus a named and identified individual. What's the model that you guys use? We,
for a long time, did the team model, and that works really, really well in a lot of firms, and it's still a huge part of our business. But increasingly, we were seeing that some firms wanted that named resource. For our biggest clients, although we never told them, that's what we did anyway, because in the back end, it was just like, look, there's enough work for 20 people. Yeah, well, we'll put those 20 people on that client. They will get that consistent level of service. They'll get the same guys turning up on Zoom meetings together. So they had that anyway. What increasingly was happening is perhaps slightly at the next level of firm, they just wanted that comfort that it's the same person. And the beauty with us is, because they're already part of our trained teams, what we do is we pull them out of there and then assign them to a firm. So rather than hiring them because the clients come along saying, oh, Vipul, I need an accountant, I need them to be able to do QuickBooks, and I need them to be doing this tax, etc. What I'm able to actually say is, no, I've got a team of people. I'll find somebody within that group who we can assign to you. So we absolutely now do both. And sometimes it's right for some, sometimes it's not. And, we're happy to have those open conversations. So I had a client actually only this Tuesday, exactly that conversation. He was convinced that he needed the dedicated model. We went through it, identified his way of using the resource, and actually between us decided he's not right for that dedicated resource yet, because that he would still have peaks that he couldn't deal with. And actually having that team-based approach, actually he was able to call on that wider team and skill base to help deliver that service for his clients. And it's a conversation we will revisit in maybe 3 months, 6 months time. But let's try and be honest with each other. And one, from my point of view, would have guaranteed me revenue, but it would not have given him the answer that he wanted. And ultimately, as I say, we have to look at, is he delivering the best for him, both his firm, his team, and his clients? And the answer was, no, that one will not give him that answer.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about retention here. And, there's a staffing crisis, Vipul. We just had recently a guest on, and she talked about, the direct cost of losing a senior staff member. You got to pay a recruiter. There's the indirect cost of potentially, losing clients and onboarding someone new, the company morale. Can you kind of talk about the importance of what you guys do over there and allowing the senior staff to elevate and provide, more of that advisory type of service to clients?
So this is on our end or for the CPA firm?
For the CPA firm.
Yeah. So what we always say is, if the work that you are doing, and I can speak for myself as somebody who worked previously, if the work's interesting, it pays well, then there has to be a very positive reason why someone then feels the need to go looking for a role. What often happens is there is frustration if they're doing work that's, let's say, quotes below what their skill set is. And that leads to frustration that they're not progressing professionally. But that lack of professional progression equals lack of progression in salary as well. Mm-hmm. And so what firms are able to do is use that skill at the level that they are trained for. And because the firm's earning more, and we have the stats that show that,
I love data and stats, Vipul. So if you got any data or stats, go ahead and throw those out there.
Yeah. So, when we've got a firm with 250 staff, mm-hmm. And what they have measured is that each of those 250 staff, on average, bill an extra $15,000 to $20,000 per annum because they use our services. Now, I'm not saying that all of that is transferred to the employee, right, but it's a much easier decision for the firm to actually say, oh, actually, we can give you a 5,000 raise or a 10,000 raise because we collectively are earning that additional income for the firm. And because what's happened is it's transferred the work that they were previously doing to our team, and that elevates them, increases their skill base, and everyone wins. The firm wins and the individuals win. And that is the key to retaining good talent, is give them interesting work that pays them well, you rarely take that phone call from that recruiter.
Yeah. And, retaining talent is one thing. Do you seeing firms out there are able to attract next gen talent because they have these processes in place, Vipul?
Yeah, I think what happens is much earlier in their career, they're able to actually have that client interaction. And we see that across the best firms that we work with. They'll come in at graduate level or even before that. And suddenly within a year, 2 years, they're actually having regular interactions, calls with their client. And that is super, super exciting. If what you want to be is their advisor in the future, you can't help but learn from the entrepreneurs that you are sitting down with, perhaps as a junior team member to start with. But when you're having when a business owner says, right, my ambition is to do X, whatever X is, yeah, and it might be to build a skyscraper, and equally it might be to build a boat. Yeah, maybe they're a boat builder and their passion is they want to sail across the Pacific, and they want to build a boat that will be the fastest boat that goes there. It's lots of different things, but that energy that you get from an entrepreneur can't help but translate to the young men and women that are in your firm.
Oh, were you going to say something, Rory?
No, go ahead, Will.
Are you sure?
I'm sure.
Maybe we can flip a coin. No, okay, all right. So, Vipul, what are some behaviors that the team at the firm can do to make sure that they're keeping their outsourced team members engaged and drawing them in as well?
Yep. It can be a collection of ideas. Some are expensive, some are very easy. The easy ones, and that's what I'll focus on, because 99% of firms using outsourcing will not go down the expense route, and I'll talk about that. I've just had a firm that flew 3 of my staff over to their offices in London and spent 2 weeks training them, put them up in a hotel, took them to places, got to see shows, and that's great, and I just had a call with the director there, and he said that the guys really looked after your people, and they absolutely did. I can assure you, they went away with huge smiles on their faces. But not every firm can do that. But the key in all of this is, guess what people like to do? They like to talk to one another. Yeah. And if you talk to people, they respond. Because if you talk to them at a human level, yeah, Will, Vipul, Rory, yeah, we like that. Yeah, we get that. We get that energy that comes from talking to one another. And it's the same in this world. And what I say to firms is, they are not just some people that are on the other side of the world that are doing work for you. They are human beings, and they like to get feedback. Am I doing well? Am I doing a good job? And if I'm not doing a good job, tell me what you think I'm not doing well, because next time I'll make sure I don't make that mistake. And if you do that, there's a cycle that things improve. The firm's happy, the individual within my team's happy. He or she has the ability to progress either within that team or within our business generally, because they are more highly skilled, they're more able to develop their language skills, and that all helps in their own personal and professional development. And that is the absolute key in making the outsourced team member feel valued, and actually for the firm to get the most out of them.
Yeah, and I've talked to a number of guests, and this common themes coming up. It's performance-driven people versus relationship-driven people. Vipul, and I know you talked about your mentor, who was more relationship-driven. He picked up that phone. He was giving the work to somebody else, and he was picking up the phone and speaking to people. And I recently heard you on a podcast talking about during the pandemic that the most successful firms out there were picking up the phone and calling clients, and asking them, if they have any issues. Can you kind of talk about, that importance of being a relationship-driven firm as well as a performance-driven firm?
I think one follows the other, and the best performing firms have great people. Yeah. First and foremost, but in order to get recognition from your clients, if you have that relationship, it's so much easier for them to help you. You get more referrals, but also you get higher fees because you are front of mind. They don't see the product as an email that you sent to them. They don't see the product as a tax return. Yeah, they don't see that as the product. They see Rory, Will, Vipul. You are the most important person in my business life. I think I shared with you previously, Rory, my mother did not make a major decision without picking up the phone to David. Any financial decision, she would pick up the phone to David, said, David, I want to do this. And she would not make that call without having spoken to him, which as a result, when he finally decided I'm retiring, and he retired only at the age of 55, she was massively upset. Yeah.
She cried, right?
She did. My sister and I always say, my sister and I are accountants.
Yeah.
So the only accountant other than her own children that she's cried over is that day when David said, I'm off, I'm retiring. Yeah. And that is absolutely the truth, because every major decision for 15 years, he was a part of. And if you can create that emotion within your client base, you have that client for that life, and the children and all their associates will always speak highly of you as their advisor, because they don't see you as just somebody who does that, because you're actually caring about their family, you're caring about the people around them in their business, because that is what it's all about. People buy from people. People don't buy a product. People buy a service from a human. And as I say, I always found when I actually went to visit a client and then I sent the bill, rarely was it challenged, because they'd actually physically seen me or a colleague on site, talking to them, talking to their people. And then when you produce a report or whatever it is, it's a lot easier to that correlation between that invoice that you've sent to them and the report or piece of advice that you've given. Whereas if all you do is you sit in your silo, head down in front of a computer and then send them a report, like, hang on a minute, they didn't talk to me, they've just sent me this and they sent me a bill with it. It just doesn't work. Relationships make everything easier. That cash comes in quicker as well.
Paul, what do you think is going to happen here in the future for the profession? What do you want to happen for the profession, and what do you think this is leading to when it comes to—
Okay, I think governments around the world are driving up compliance more and more. So I think that's where the technology is increasingly playing a huge part, because without that, because it's more regular filings, and inevitably with that will follow more regular payments, because the world is in huge debt, or the governments of the world are in huge amounts of debt. So they will want to collect cash really quick. So I think the challenge is going to be choosing the right technology based on where you're based in the world. So I think that's going to be a key part, number one. But I really think that for those firms that do that, they then have the data from which they can absolutely help that business owner run a better business, keep more of their wealth, pay less tax, or the tax that they're due, absolutely, but no more than they actually have to pay. And I think that's where the change is going to happen. But they need the time and resource to create the opportunity, and that I think is the biggest thing. And technology is a huge part. Inevitably, I'm going to say, oh yeah, we are part of that equation, or our industry is part of that equation. But I think for me, they've got a huge opportunity because they now have the information at their fingertips, which will allow them to have better conversations.
Our tagline here is don't fight the robots, team up with them.
Yeah.
All right. Vipul, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. If someone wants to get a hold of you or learn more about Advancetrack, what's the best way to do so?
I'm on LinkedIn, so that's fairly easy to get a hold of me on there. And then, go to advancetrack.com. There's a green button saying start here. A small form, you'll be asked to, you'll then get a link to a Zoom diary. Either myself or my team will happily have a chat with you guys, and love to have more conversations.
All right, great. Well, thank you so much for joining me again.
Pleasure to be here.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
All opinions expressed by Rob Santos and Rory Henry on this website podcast interview are solely their opinions and do not reflect the opinions of Arrowroot Family Office LLC or their parent company or affiliates, and may have been previously disseminated on television, radio, internet, or another medium. You should not treat any opinion expressed by anyone as a specific inducement to make a particular investment or follow a particular strategy, but only as an expression of their opinions. Past performance is not indicative of future results.